Firecracker didn't die because she betrayed Homelander. She died because she loved them too much. And that right there is the uncomfortable truth most people miss when watching The Boys. On the surface, her death looks like just another shocking, brutal moment designed to remind you how dangerous Homelander is. But if you actually slow down and look at what the show is doing, this isn't just violence. It's a calculated statement about power, faith, and the fatal cost of devotion. Before we break it all the way down, here's what we're really unpacking. How Firecracker went from being a loud, confident believer to a broken symbol of blind loyalty. Why her attempt to merge religion with Homelander's ideologies sealed her fate, and the deeper psychological reason Homelander had to kill her. Not out of anger, but out of necessity. Because once you understand that, her death stops being shocking and starts feeling inevitable. Firecracker, played by Valorie Curry, enters the story with a very specific kind of energy. She's not just a leather soup trying to survive inside Vought's machine, she's a believer. Not in the passive sense, but in the loud, performative, almost aggressive sense. She doesn't just support Homelander, she elevates him. She reframes him. She begins turning him into something larger than human. And that's where things start to get dangerous. Because the moment she pitches the idea of a Homelander Bible, combining traditional scripture with a new AI-generated narrative centered around him, the show makes it very clear what's happening. This isn't faith anymore. It's branding disguised as belief. It's religion repackaged into propaganda. And Firecracker isn't just participating in it, she's leading it. At this point, she thinks she's rising. In reality, she's already falling. The turning point comes when her past catches up with her. Her old mentor, a struggling pastor played by Earl Brown, shows up not as a political figure, not as an enemy, but as a human being in need. His church has been attacked by a soup. His community is collapsing under Vought's corporate control. He doesn't want influence, he wants help. And for a brief moment, you can feel the tension. Because this is the last piece of Firecracker that still belongs to her old self. This is the last chance she has to choose something real. But she doesn't. Instead, she does something far worse than ignoring him. She destroys him. Under pressure from Vought, she goes on air and publicly labels him a traitor, a starlighter. She participates in dismantling the very foundation she once stood on. And in that moment, something inside her shifts permanently. Because this is where Firecracker stops being a person and becomes a tool. And tools don't get loyalty, they get used. What makes this even more tragic is that she doesn't see it that way. In her mind, this is sacrifice, this is devotion. This is what it means to serve something greater than yourself. She believes that by giving up her past, her morals, even her identity, she's proving her worth. But here's the reality she doesn't understand. Homelander doesn't reward sacrifice. He consumes it. That brings us to the most important piece of this entire breakdown. Understanding Homelander himself, portrayed by Antony Starr. Because if you get this wrong, everything else falls apart. Homelander does not want love. Let me say that again clearly. He does not want love. He wants control that looks like love. He wants submission that sounds like praise. He wants fear that dresses itself up as loyalty. But actual, genuine, unconditional love, that's something he cannot process, cannot trust, and ultimately cannot tolerate. And that's exactly what Firecracker gives him. Not strategy, not manipulation, not survival instincts. Love. Real love. And that's why she becomes dangerous. Because the moment someone loves Homelander without fear, they introduce a version of reality he can't control. They break the illusion that everything revolves around dominance and submission. They force him to confront something human. And for someone who has spent their entire existence trying to escape their own humanity, that's not comforting. It's threatening. By the time we reach their final interaction, the tension is already locked in place. Firecracker is emotionally exposed. She's conflicted. She's trying to reconcile two completely incompatible beliefs, her original faith and the false god she's helped create. And instead of hiding that conflict, she reveals it. That's her fatal mistake. Because in Homelander's world, doubt is betrayal. Not action, not rebellion. Doubt. He confronts her not with rage, but with something far more unsettling. Curiosity. He asks her questions, he probes, he forces her to explain what she feels. And as she talks, she thinks she's saving herself. She thinks honesty will protect her. She thinks love will redeem her. But she's already lost. Because the more she explains, the more she exposes the one thing Homelander cannot allow to exist, an emotional truth he doesn't control. She tells him she loves him. She tells him everyone else fears him, but she doesn't. She tells him she sees him for who he really is. And without realizing it, she reduces him. She brings him down from a god to a man. And Homelander cannot survive that. So what does he do? He corrects it. The way he kills her matters. It's not random. It's not chaotic. He slams her head into the wing of an eagle statue, a symbol of power, patriotism, identity, everything he claims to represent. It's theatrical. It's deliberate. It's a message. Because Homelander doesn't just eliminate threats, he makes statements. And the statement here is simple. There is no version of devotion that will ever be enough. Now let's address another layer people overlook. Her connection to Soldier Boy, played by Jensen Ackles. On paper, it looks like this might be the reason Homelander snaps. Jealousy, betrayal, ego. But that's surface-level thinking. Homelander doesn't care about the relationship itself. What he cares about is what happens within it. The conversations, the vulnerability, the doubt that gets spoken out loud. That's where the real damage is done. Because it confirms something he refuses to accept, that even his most devoted follower isn't fully his. And that's enough. It's also important to understand that Firecracker never stood a chance of surviving this. Unlike characters enhanced with V1, she doesn't have the ability to come back from something like this. Once Homelander decides she's done, she's done. And narratively, that's exactly how it needs to be. Because her story isn't about survival. It's about consequence. She represents what happens when someone gives up everything: morality, identity, truth, in exchange for proximity to power. She believes that if she just proves herself enough, sacrifices enough, loves enough, she'll be protected. But the system she's serving doesn't protect people like her. It destroys them. And maybe the most disturbing part of all of this is that even in her final moments, she doesn't fully understand what's happening. She's still trying to reach him, still trying to prove something, still believing there's a version of this where she lives. But there isn't. Because this was never about what she did. It was about what she represented. Firecracker is the embodiment of blind loyalty. And in a world like The Boys, blind loyalty isn't rewarded. It's punished, especially when it challenges the very illusion it's trying to uphold. And that brings us to the final and uncomfortable truth. Homelander didn't kill Firecracker because she failed him. He killed her because she revealed something about him, that he's not a god, that he doesn't understand love, and that the one thing he claims to want is the one thing he will always destroy. And once that truth is in the open, even for a second, it has to be erased. So he erases her. Not out of rage, not out of jealousy, but out of necessity. Because in Homelander's world, anything that contradicts his identity doesn't get debated. It gets eliminated. And that's why Firecracker had to die. Not because she wasn't loyal enough, but because she was in the wrong way.